It's Victory Tuesday. The Chargers are 2-0, defeating the Raiders yesterday in Las Vegas with the score of 20-9. The Chargers defense absolutely dominated the Raiders. Geno Smith had 3 turnovers. Herbert threw for 2 touchdowns. Quentin Johnson had a big play down the field, and I was there to see all of it. It was pretty awesome. The Chargers are looking good. I had called that they would win this game in Las Vegas, which they did. Didn't predict the score right, but I was on the money as far as turnovers and having them get a W in Vegas. So we're going to go through the game, the recap, my analysis, and also look ahead to Sunday's matchup against the Broncos at SoFi for the home opener for the Chargers. If you haven't already, be sure to like and subscribe to the Electric Edge Podcast on YouTube. Follow me on X at Electric Edge Pod and on TikTok. I'm also on Spotify too if you want to stream the episodes while you're at the gym, in the car. You can find me there. But with that being said, I'm ready to jump into this episode, talk about a great win last night in Vegas against the Raiders, shutting all the Raiders fans up. I heard it from all angles on social media, but the Chargers came out victorious. So let's jump in. All right, Chargers won 20-9. Great game by the defense. This was Diane Henley's flu game last night. There was a quote that came out. I think Chris Ryan from ESPN had reported it, that he was crying a little bit on the sidelines because of how ill he felt, and Coach Minter caught him. But Henley played phenomenal. He was part of that first pick of the game. Tip ball, landed Henley's arms, sets the Chargers up already in field goal range within the first minute of the game. He played phenomenal last night. Derwin James balled out. You know, I mentioned this player last episode against the Chiefs, that Dante Jackson is playing phenomenal. I didn't know what to expect with his signing, but he's played very well. He had a pick last night. He's looked really good in the secondary. I believe Jeremy Caldwell also had a sack last night. The defense just shut down the Raiders. So if I go through the stats, Geno Smith was 24 of 43 last night for 180 yards with 3 picks and 3 sacks. His QBR rating was 37. Ashton Jeanty had 11 attempts rushing for 43 yards. I don't know what the Raiders' game plan was to not involve him more. He had some explosive runs. Like, I think his long run was 13 yards. He was getting pretty good chunks. I don't know what the game plan was for him, but I thought I'd see more of him on the field last night. As far as receivers, Brock Bowers was shut down now. We don't know if there was lingering issues from his knee injury in week 1, but he only had 5 catches for 38 yards. Jacoby Myers led the charge for the Raiders. He had 6 catches for 68 yards. He had 12 targets last night. Other than that, 1 or 2 catches here, but the Chargers did a phenomenal job. Their secondary was sticky last night, shutting down any pass attack that Geno Smith tried to stir up. This game last night was definitely won by the defense. Offense played well. They made plays when they need to. The offense, though, hasn't established the run, which I'll get to in a little bit. It's definitely becoming a frustration for me, but we'll get there in a minute. Let's go to the Chargers stats. So Herbert last night was 19 of 27 for 242 yards, 2 touchdowns. His QBR rating was 122.8, and he had a 70% completion percentage last night. And this is what I'm going back to with the rushing game. Justin Herbert led all rushers. He had 9 attempts for 31 yards. Najee Harris had 8 attempts for 28 yards. Hampton had 8 attempts for 24 yards. The Chargers in the offseason went out and signed Najee. They drafted Hampton in the first round. I'm curious why the run game hasn't been established more yet. I know that Herbert and Roman met over the offseason, and they wanted to establish the pass game more, which I totally get. You have your best player on the field. But just to give them some balance, because probably in the first quarter or so, the Raiders were ready for it. They were ready for play action. Herbert, I think, missed like 4 of his first 5 throws. So they got it going, but you can alleviate that if you can get the run game going. And when Najee Harris got into the game, he mixed in with Hampton. But later in the game, Hampton had a fumble, and then after that, it was all Najee Harris. Najee Harris ran pretty hard. So I'd like to see against Denver, especially with Denver's game Sunday against the Colts. Jonathan Taylor just ran all over them. So I'd love to see if we can just establish the run game a bit more going into Sunday's game to give more of this offense a little bit of a balance. But I'm not complaining. A win's a win. I'll take it. I would just like to see that a little bit more Sunday and really get over that 100-yard hump, which I have talked about in both episodes that the Chargers need to establish for the run. QJ, big game, 3 catches, 71 yards, touchdown, caught a 60-yard bomb from Herbert in the second quarter. Keenan Allen, we had 3rd and Keenan, we had 4th and Keenan last night. He had 5 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. McConkey had 5 catches for 48 yards. Trey Harris got involved last night. He had 2 catches for 34 yards. Najee Harris out of the backfield had 2 catches for 20 yards. And Disley had 1 catch for 7 yards. And Hampton had 1 catch for 1 yard. Not as efficient this week as last week, spreading the ball around. But, I mean, Herbert still hit 7 receivers. He didn't throw for 300 yards, but he did what he needed to do. I want to see this trend continue, getting all these different pieces involved in the passing game. It's only going to benefit them down the stretch where even if you have someone double covered, someone else is going to be open. So let's hope that they can balance it out with the running game and pass game. And I think this offense is really going to start to click on all cylinders. So defensively last night, Henley had a pick, Dante Jackson had a pick, and then Tony Jefferson had a pick. There were some balls that Geno Smith threw that was he just threw it up, and I guess he was just hoping for someone to catch him. He was throwing into double coverage. But I had called on my last episode leading up into this game that the Chargers, my bolt blast was that the Chargers were going to have at least 2 turnovers, and they had 3 last night. So we had only 1 turnover. There was a fumble by Hampton. You win the turnover game, you have a pretty good chance of winning the ball game. So good on that. As far as defensively, like I said, Daiyan Henley probably had his best game of his Chargers career so far. He had 10 total tackles last night, 7 solo. He had a sack. He had the pick. Tarheeb still played well. He had 9 tackles, 7 were solo, 1 tackle for loss. We had Derwin James just flying all over the field. Tony Jefferson with the pick. Jeremy Caldwell, I think this is his first career sack in the NFL. So you got that last night. And then Khalil Mack also did have a sack last night. Now, Khalil Mack suffered a pretty gruesome injury last night. The replay had shown that his elbow was the opposite direction. I haven't heard anything yet as far as how serious it is. Let's hope that he doesn't require surgery. But I had read in the Twitter universe that it may be a good idea to give the Bengals a call. The Bengals are looking for a quarterback. They spent all this money on their offense, and Joe Burrow's out until December at this point. See what they want for Trey Hendrickson. Trey Hendrickson's on a 1-year deal. Maybe someone like Trey Lance could go over there and fit. I personally don't see Jim Harbaugh trading Trey Lance, but you never know. I think Trey Hendrickson would instantly upgrade that defensive line. And even if Khalil Mack was out, I think that defensive line just becomes tremendous. So we'll see what happens. I'm not betting on it. I don't think it's going to happen, but definitely an interesting thought with the injury to Mack last night. Also, shout out to Cam Dicker, the most accurate kicker in NFL history with a minimum of 100 attempts. Pretty cool last night. It's so important to have really good special teams, and Cam Dicker kind of just fell into our lap, and he's been phenomenal ever since. It's good to have a kicker that can make field goals in pressure situations, make the PATs that you need to. It really elevates the team when all 3 phases of football can fire on all cylinders. So I want to touch on the defense and some stats that popped up last night. So Chargers defense against the Raiders. The Chargers defense had 6 tackles for loss, 3 takeaways, 15 pass deflections. It says no team had ever hit all these marks in a game since both passes, defenses, and tackles for loss were first tracked in 1999. Also, a stat came out from the NFL that the Chargers had 7 players multiple pass defenses against the Raiders. That's tied for the most in the game since the stat was first tracked in 1999. It's going to really suck, but there's going to be a lot of calls for Jesse Minter to be a head coach in the NFL. I really hope the band can stay together, but what he's done to this Chargers defense since he's been here is phenomenal. The Chargers defense hasn't given up a lead in 2 games this year. They didn't give up a touchdown last night. It'll be interesting to see how they perform against Denver. You have 3 straight divisional games. A little bit different offense. Bo Nix can move. He has some weapons. They have a run game, but this defense is just shutting it down. I kept yelling this at the game last night, saying that bend, don't break. The Chargers defense can bend, give up the field goals, but don't give up the touchdowns. And that's exactly what they did last night. There's a couple situations where Raiders were driving, couldn't connect on a touchdown, gave a field goal. That's what great teams do. Defenses show up big, get stops, don't give up the big plays, don't give up a tremendous amount of points, lock it down, especially on the road against a division opponent. Also, I need to give kudos to Trey Pipkins. There's a lot of talk what this offensive line was going to be with Slater going down. Trey Pipkins has stepped up. He gave up 0 pressures last night, and I'm pretty sure Max Crosby was on his side of the line. Joe Alt's playing phenomenal at left tackle. I think his pass block is first in the league right now. But 0 pressures allowed and the second highest pass blocking grade of Trey Pipkins' career last night. Things happen for a reason. I always believe that. But one man went down, next man up, and this line has been pretty solid for the Chargers. And myself and other podcasters, analysts were very concerned going into week 1 about what this offensive line would be. And they've stepped up, and you got to give them credit where credit's due. So let's hope that we can continue rolling into week 3 against Denver. Okay, so let's go into PFF grades for last night. So top 5 offensive grades for the against the Raiders. Najee Harris led with 75.7. Number 2 is Keenan Allen at 75.1. Lam McConkey comes in at 3 at 74.3. Joe Alt at 73.4. And Justin Herbert at 67.9. Bottom 5 for the offense. KLS at 43.7. Tyler Conklin at 44.2. Darius Davis at 44.9. He had a bad fumble, but I don't put all of the blame on him. I don't know what the play calling was on 4th down. It was 4th and 1, and you're trying some trick play. The Chargers, prior to that, ran a play where they did their own version of the tush push. So why wouldn't you just repeat it? So definitely some questionable play calling by Greg Roman last night. He called a great game week 1. Last night, I'm not sure what was going on with some of the plays they called. Didn't make sense. Also, to add to that, Chargers were in the red zone. I think it was in the 3rd quarter. They threw the ball down the field. They get to the red zone. They run 3 times. I didn't know what to make of it. I think they got to 1st and 5. They ran it 3 times and couldn't get in. Why wouldn't you throw the ball at least once? You threw the ball all the way down the field and then you abandon it. It just, I don't know the reason behind it. I don't understand. I get you want to run the ball and pound it in, but your pass game led you down the field at that point. But I digress. Anyway, let's get back to bottom 5 PFF offensive grades. 4 was Mekhi Becton at 50.4, and Matlock was at 52.4. All right, so top 5 PFF defensive grades. Alohi Gilman led the charge at 82.4, Jaheim Still at 81.4, Dante Jackson 80.5, Khalil Mack at 79.5, and Diane Henley at 78.9. And bottom 5, 1 we have Caleb Murphy at 43.5, 2 Bud Dupree at 46.1, Troy Dye at 55.4, Justin Aboye at 56.2, and Deshaun Hand at 64.4. Also to mention, Jim Harbaugh is now 7-6 against Pete Carroll. And there's one other stat I wanted to bring up for this episode. So for the first time in 16 years, it's been 16 years, the Chargers are in first place in the AFC West. It's been 16 long, frustrating years since the Chargers have held first place in the AFC West. I can only hope that this is the beginning of something really special with this team. I've been watching Pat McAfee this morning get up, First Take, and they're all high on the Chargers. I think Herbert right now has 3rd best odds for MVP. I tweeted out that I'm going to put out a bet to have him win it all. It's going to be tough with Lamar and Allen, but he just has to keep doing what he's doing. He has a lot of weapons. He has a better run game than last year, which they need to incorporate. But like I said in my past episode, I think this team is special, playing in 2 hostile environments, not at home at SoFi, and coming out with divisional wins. That speaks volumes. I was watching some content that Chargers had put out. I think there was a team meeting like the middle of July. I think it said July 18th. And Harbaugh kept saying, "What are you going to do about it?" Now, the Chiefs have won whatever it is, 9 straight AFC West titles. What are you going to do about it? We haven't beaten the Chiefs in 4 years. What are you going to do about it? But this team heard the message. I'm super excited to see next week's matchup against Denver, and I'll put out an episode this week on my matchup and what I think is going to happen. But I predicted both week 1 and week 2 wins against division opponents. I have them winning as well against Denver at home at SoFi. But we'll see what happens. Like I said, I'll put out another episode going into a deep dive on the matchup against the Broncos. But a lot of my analysis and predictions that I've had have come to fruition. So let's hope I can stay on that roll and to bring you guys some accurate content and accurate analysis. On a side note, I was at the game last night. I hung out at the Chargers tailgate, which was a ton of fun. So if you ever go to a Chargers home game, hit up Thunder Alley. But if you come to Vegas and go to a game, we had a mini Thunder Alley going on yesterday, which was a lot of fun. Raiders fans do what they do, trying to antagonize us, but I had a blast. It was great to mingle with other Chargers fans, have some good food, and just vibe out and take in all the good vibes of being 1-0 at that point. But I mean, it was a great game last night. Like I said, there's some things that the offense needs to clean up, and it revolves on that run game. But the defense has just been lights out, and let's hope that trend continues. So if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to Electric Edge Podcast on YouTube. Follow me on X at Electric Edge Pod. Also follow me on TikTok at Electric Edge Pod. And if you want to listen to the show while you're on the road, at the gym, I'm on Spotify. But let me know in the comments what you thought about last night's game against the Raiders in Vegas. Players you thought that stood out. Your takes and analysis, always appreciated. I do see comments from other fan bases. I let them be. I don't engage with them just because I'm not one to talk smack to other teams. I don't like to do it. It's just not my MO. Like all those, I had a ton of comments about the Raiders game and the Raiders score. I didn't engage with them, and the scoreboard says it all. So that's kind of where I stand with engaging with other fan bases. I like to talk to you guys, the Chargers fans, because you are my people. So with that being said, be sure to be on the lookout for my episode on the matchup on Sunday against Denver. It'll be a good one. Let's hope we can get another W, keep this win train going. But as always, go Chargers and bolt up.